You didn't start a business to put out fires, but here you are, holding the extinguisher. Business isn't theory, it's pressure, late nights, tight margins, the thing that keeps breaking no matter how many times you fix it. When the room's on fire, the amateurs shout, the pros stay calm. That's the Fixers and Founders way. Part discipline, part rebellion. We walk into broken systems, find the pulse, and make it run clean. Because calm isn't weakness. Calm is a strategy. We're operators, builders, problem solvers. Born from the grind. Built for the builders. Join us now as we chat with fixers and founders just like you. Let's jump in.
I signed up for it a couple weeks ago and I got somebody reach out to me and they go, "Hey, I found you on the podcast guest website. Can we connect?" And I said, "Sure." And I looked the guy up and I'm like, I don't know why I would even be on this podcast. Like, it has nothing to do with, like, it doesn't seem like it would be anything that I'd be relevant for. And so we get on and he goes, "Sorry for the bait and switch, but I actually don't want you on my podcast. I'm kind of interested in your services." And I was like, I mean, I'm not going to, hang up for that, kind of bait and switch.
That was awesome. Well, hopefully that turns into something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are the best kind of those,
Welcome to Fixers and Founders, where vision stops being theory and starts moving units. I'm Tony.
I'm Forrest.
Today's guest, Ben Speich, Fractional COO and EOS Integrator. Ben is the guy founders call when the wheels are spinning but traction's gone. With 15 plus years in ops leadership, he takes scattered teams and locks them into rhythm, clarity, and accountability. Through Speich Consulting, he scales companies for growth, tightens up messy systems, and even preps them for exit. Calm in the storm, sharp on the patterns, and always steering visionaries from ideas to execution. If you're leading a founder-led shop and need structure, not chaos, this one's for you. I'm Tony.
I'm Forrest.
This is Fixers and Founders. Let's roll.
That's awesome. Appreciate the intro. Benjamin, great to meet you, hear you, talk to you in person. Did you always see yourself as a fixer, or did that happen by accident?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here. And I did not see myself as a fixer, or at least I didn't know that's what it was. I think I started out as kind of that, kid who sticks the fork in the outlet. It's like, let's see what happens, and not afraid to try, something new. And I kept doing that whenever, it wasn't working. And so early in my career, that's kind of just what it was, is I kept raising my hand going, I think there's a better way to do this. Here's a solution, or here's something I've tried. And then you try to get people to, rally around and also help, execute on it. And so it just kind of naturally progressed into everyone coming to me when there was an issue and they go, "Hey, do you have an idea? Do you think you can figure this out?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so. Let's see what happens." So yeah, it wasn't a plan, but it definitely became what it is today.
So you've stuck your fork in an outlet a lot, I guess is what you're saying.
A lot of forking around is what I heard.
Absolutely.
Is that where you lost your hair? I'm just curious.
Yes,
we got three ball guys on this episode
100%.
today.
Let's
so
attribute it to that.
None of us would be options for Hair Club for Men. I actually applied for it a long time ago and I got rejected. So,
Yeah,
there's that.
exactly.
So continuing on, so how do you keep your team, when you're working with a team and fixing things, how do you keep your team aligned when the vision and operations are pulling in different directions? I'm sure we've all faced that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of an interesting question, just from the fact of like defining what does aligned mean, right? Like if you look at it, if you break it down a little bit, and I kind of had this conversation with somebody the other day. If we assume every process, right, is going to give us some sort of output, right? That's just how processes are. Something comes out, at the end, whether it's good or bad or otherwise. And I think the misalignment comes from adding the word desired outcome at the end and realizing the processes that you have in place are not giving you that desired outcome. They're giving you some outcome because that's just what happens, but it may not be that desired one. And I think that's what happens when you have these visionaries, trying to find new direction, and they come and say, "Hey, here's where I want to go." You have to be able to look at where you are right now and go, well, here's our current outcome of what we're doing. Here's the outcome you're looking for. Now we actually need to create or find these desired habits or these desired processes that are going to create this new desired outcome. So I think when that question comes up or people say, hey, we're misaligned, you really got to boil down what that means, because it's kind of one of those, I feel it's one of those like marketing buzzwords that everyone's like, yeah, of course. And then nobody really knows what they're talking about. And so if you break it down into what does that alignment or misalignment mean, then we can start having that conversation of, let's just figure out what those ideal or those desired habits are that we need to start doing that are going to give us that desired outcome.
So along with that, so how often are your visionaries, your founders of businesses throwing that alignment off track?
I think that's the challenge, right? I think that's the big challenge of how often they're doing it is you want them to be doing it a lot. Like you want your visionary to be comfortable enough to say, I have a new idea when they have the new idea. And so the more they do that, the better and healthier I think the company's going to grow. The challenge comes in to you, uh, how often we are switching that process of those desired habits, right? If you're changing the desired habits week over week, the team is going to start really getting burnt out. And so there's a challenge there of let's let what our current situation is manifest itself so we get a true outcome of what we're doing. Once we know that, then we can make those minor adjustments and change direction a little bit. But I love a visionary who's throwing out ideas, kind of nonstop.
Absolutely. We want the visionaries to come up with ideas and help guide the business, but your job, my job is to create the format and the structure to reduce the chaos, to be the filter for those ideas, to keep them from just dropping in. I used to talk about one of my visionaries. It was like he would walk through the office and drop hand grenades and just drop them everywhere and then run out, right? And then you and me, I feel like us, would be out there picking up the pieces, so to speak.
Yes,
Getting clarity is important and making sure that they stay on
absolutely.
track, but then still don't hinder them from having ideas, right?
100%.
Yeah, and Forrest, what came to mind when you first asked that question, how often does the visionary come in and sort of misalign things? I was thinking initially, like, as much as you allow them to, in some respect. And also, I heard it said on LinkedIn here this week, a lot of times the visionaries ask what's next, and it's our job to then ask what's first. Yeah, I agree.
You got to figure out what is that first step and how do you keep the team aligned with where they're going to look at that desired outcome. Because like you said, Benjamin, an outcome's going to happen one way or the other, whether you have a fixer or not. It's just what does that outcome look like and what is it going to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Can you share a time when you failed and what you learned from it in working with a founder? It sounds like you've got some experience. I know something involved the fork at one time, so we got that
Yes,
covered.
exactly.
What about some
When you
other?
forked everything up, right?
Exactly. Absolutely did. Yeah, I think you could probably agree with this. I'm sure there'll be some head nods in the room, but when I started my EOS journey, I took on the role of saying no to the visionary. And it's funny because I even had a conversation yesterday with a visionary in a kind of scoping environment, and he goes, "I need somebody to tell me no." And I quickly was like, hey, no, that's not how this works. Like my job is to not tell you no. And I thought that's what it was when I started, and quickly realized that created a lot of tension. It created a lot of not necessarily distrust, but at least the visionary didn't want to share anything with me anymore because he just knew the answer was no. And I'm going to go tell somebody else. And a lot of what happened was the visionary would then start testing his own ideas without telling me. And then I would find out, in the hallway and go, hey, wait, what's everyone doing? Why are we testing that? And so I said yesterday, I go, my job as an integrator is not to tell you no. It's to tell you if we did, this is what it would look like.
Mm.
And then you get to make the call on okay, I do like that outcome. And so that requires me to maybe go test it, maybe have to go do some research, but it's not a no, it's a, well, let's see what that would look like. And so that was my kind of big eye-opening mistake and then realization, soon afterwards, like, hey, I can't just run around saying no to everybody that has an idea. I have to start working with them on, formulating what that idea would look like.
Yeah, one of the things I've experienced on a leadership team was teaching the leadership team to not say we can't do that, but change the mindset set to, in order to do this, we need XYZ. We need more trucks. We need more people. We need more hours. We need a bigger budget or whatever. But just transitioning that mindset shift from no, no, no to, hey, let's talk about what that's going to look like. But then in order to do that, we need XYZ, whatever those things are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Ben, thanks again for entrusting us with your first podcast guest experience. And we, in kind, trusted you as our first guest. It's our first episode. So happy to be here and thankful. I got a question for you that kind of is a great natural next question. What makes a great visionary integrator relationship either work or fail, in your experience and opinion?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of boil it down to trust and humility. I think those two kind of together, but it's an interesting take on trust, and maybe there's a better word for it. I say all the time that I not talk good, so there's probably more words out there than I know, but it's trust to be, radically candid, to steal a little bit from that book. But it's the trust that, hey, I can say something to you and you're going to take it in a constructive way. And we go back and forth in that, so, in that environment. But also the trust that you're not doing things behind my back, or you don't mean to do things behind my back. And so if I find out a visionary was talking to somebody and had an idea but wasn't brought to me yet, I can't assume, oh, they're trying to do things behind my back. I have to assume, hey, that's a great conversation you had with them. Let's ideate on it together and let's move along with it. And so there's that trust back and forth of like the yin and the yang, but they have to trust each other that they're operating with the best intentions.
I like what you said there as far as the visionary is not going to never not do things behind your back, but they don't mean to. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
having that conversation, having that open and honest conversation of, hey, I know that, you probably didn't mean to do this, but this is what happened. Let's try to make sure we stay on track and stay on the same page.
Absolutely. And like I said, you have to be able to say, hey, I'm comfortable having that conversation. I'm comfortable being told that. And I think that's also where that humility comes in. If there's too many egos in the room, there's not enough room for ideas. And so if I can sometimes, an integrator COO, I'm sure you can attest to it, is not a glory role. They're typically not the ones out there, getting the parades. And nor would I want one, right? I am not a person who wants to be up in the spotlight usually. And so having a visionary, I think that puts a little bit of pressure on the visionary to be the integrator's biggest cheerleader.
Hmm.
And when the integrator is in the room, the visionary is the one who has to be clapping on their behalf and saying, "Hey, look at all of the things that, they just did." Because everybody else is going, "Oh my God, this person's implementing a new thing," or "I'm going through another training." A lot of times it's not celebrated the work that goes into it. So I think that's where you need that humility on both sides.
Amen. I agree 100%. And, you said trust. So if you were to look at the Providence Consulting Group LinkedIn page, it says confident, respected, trusted. I think those are the three pillars for like any good relationship, let alone just integrator or visionary. Like there's a confidence factor, the respect, and the trust. And if you lose any or all of those, in my opinion, like the relationship is really damaged. And honestly, if you lose all of them, it's dead.
Yeah.
So with that said, how do you know when it's time to hand something that you've been working on off to the other side?
The other side, yeah. There's always, I think, like a bit of back and forth because I think a lot of people are, but for those who aren't, right, there's Patrick Lencioni, and I love stealing from him. 6 Types of Working Genius. Shout out to all my other aliens out there. The ET's got to hang together, and so having that enablement and tenacity. I'm not a big ideator of, sitting around and just talking. I want to see what it's going to look like. And so there's a little bit of back and forth. And so what that means is like we just talked about, if the visionary has an idea, we flush it out a little bit together, then it's kind of goes to me to go create a little bit of it, right? I'm going to now dive in a little bit, do some research, create a few things, maybe draft a proposal, stuff like that. Then I'm going to bring it back to the visionary and say, okay, now it's in your hands again. You need to add this new information to your dream state of walking around and thinking about what it would look like. And then we meet up again. And so there's very much this back and forth. It has to do with energy, right? Like when something starts feeling like it's draining, I need to find somebody to hand that off to and say, hey, somebody needs to take this on who may not find it draining. And so I do love when people kind of embrace that working genius, roles and ideas.
I wonder how many integrators are out there are ETs, because I'm an ET as well.
I think a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's one of the rankings on the Working Genius assessment.
Yeah. Tenacity and
Okay.
tenacity. Yeah.
I'll need to take that. So what would you say, Ben, is one process or system that you've put into place that you think is fundamental or could be like the biggest game changer for your clients?
Yeah, I always push it. I think, again, being an EOS, like maybe it's a cop out to say so, but I do think that scorecard is probably one of the most important things. I just had a conversation with a manager who he hired 4 people and just finished hiring the 4th. And I met him at a networking event and he goes, oh, one of the issues I'm running into is I feel like I'm micromanaging my team. And the first thing I said was, how are you measuring them? And so if you don't have a scorecard in any area, you need to, I think, really get one. And that I think even a decision matrix or even like the people analyzer tool, it's a version of this, scorecard. You're giving data and numerical value to things, and you're able to make assessments off of that. And so I really do, in every role, in every group, in every project, create some sort of scorecard that will help you track, what's happening and then look at it from a very kind of outside perspective. The numbers don't lie, thing.
And don't have 100 items on that scorecard.
Oh my
I was
goodness, right?
just talking to another integrator
And
earlier
don't make the
today.
score 1 to 100.
Yeah. Yeah, he was telling me about a company he was working for previously, and they had so many scorecard items that it was just a paralysis by analysis. It was too much to look at. Nothing was getting measured.
Can I get an amen that you can over-process-tize things?
Yes, absolutely. So, Ben, what's the worst thing about being a fractional COO and the best? There's got to be good and bad to it. But so what's the worst thing about
Bad
being
first.
That, yeah, I think it's getting out of the comfort zone of my own personality, right? And I think it's one of those things that I answered the other day. Somebody came up kind of at a networking event and they were doing, interview questions kind of thing. And they said, hey, what would you recommend to somebody who's hesitant to go networking? And I'm like, just, you have to do it anyway. I don't enjoy networking. It's not who I am, but I sit in the car, I put the face on, and I say, okay, you have to go out there and sell yourself for the next 45 minutes. And it's the shaking the hands, it's meeting new people. And I've told people that I'm like, hey, I don't really like doing this. And they're like, really? You're so good at it. Or you're like, I would have never guessed. And I'm like, I just do it a lot. And so for me, it's getting out of my comfort zone in those things because I am the only one in my business right now, as many founders are. And so it's getting comfortable with doing the things you're uncomfortable with, I think, is probably the worst part.
What's the best?
The best
Taking your own
part,
advice.
the best part is, I think it's just going down to being a founder of your own business is 4 days a week, 3 days a week. Like, what do I feel like doing this week? I can kind of set my own schedule. And a lot of what that means is I get to work when I'm ready to work, regardless of when that is. So if I wake up on a Saturday morning and I have an idea, I'm going to go to my computer and start working on that idea. If I don't have any energy at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, I'm not going to sit down at my desk and try to force myself to work. I'm going to go, do something that's going to energize me and get me back at it, which I think is, again, just a working from home, with also, it's your own business. So
Good deal. I do
Definitely
like the
agree.
freedom. Yeah, the freedom is good.
At this age, our daughter's young enough that she wants to hang out with mommy and daddy. And she talks sometimes like, oh, I wish you didn't have to work. I say, sweetheart, be grateful we get to work from home.
Mhm.
You don't know any difference. I've shared that with Forrest before. He said that, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Hey, with that, kind of youth in mind, say you could go back to your 18-year-old self, Ben, what would you tell you?
What would I tell me?
And it could be 20 or 21, just a younger
Yeah,
self.
exactly. It's probably a little bit of, I go back to checking the ego a little bit, but try to not be the smartest person in the room. And I think that it's on kind of two different levels of it, right? One is just the ego of it all. Don't pretend that you are the smartest person in the room. But second, if you are the smartest person in the room, you need to go find a new room to be in. And I think that piece, helped me kind of start. When I realized that, I started doing a lot more things that I was uncomfortable with. And so going and finding new adventures and new things to expose myself to. I've traveled all over the world. I love being in places where they don't speak English and I still have to communicate. And so the earlier I think you can do that, start being uncomfortable, is probably a pretty big win for you overall. And yeah, again, if you're the smartest person when you look around, I'm like, you got to go find a new room to stand in.
Yeah, super cool. That's a great answer. I love that for sure. I got one last question for you.
Shoot.
You ready for it? What is one thing that most people would be surprised to know about you?
Let's see. I already said I was introverted. So it depends on who you're talking to. I'm sure that would be a surprise. Let's see, what else? I cook a lot. I'm the cook for our family, so I think that's kind of one thing. I tease my kids because they every time on the weekend they ask me for, they're hungry or something like that. I'm like, this is my 70th meal that I've cooked today or this week. But I do. I cook everybody's breakfast. I cook everybody's lunch. I get it all ready in the morning, and then when they come home in the afternoon, my boys walk in from school at 3:30 and they are hungry for dinner. So every day they walk in, I have dinner ready, which is a lot of meals. And so I'm also the cook for our family as well.
And that's another huge reason that your whole brood should be especially thankful that you are a work from home dad and husband, right?
Really?
Yes,
You
absolutely.
could not do that otherwise.
100%.
Awesome. Well, kind of wraps things up for our inaugural episode. Thanks so much again, Ben, for gracing us with your presence and your insight. I thought it was excellent, man. What did you think, Forrest?
I thought it was great too. But I'm looking forward to at least having somebody with hair on the next episode.
Exactly. There's a few of us, man. We got to start a club or something.
That's right.
We'll call it Hair Club for Men.
Yes.
Oh, my darlings, look at you. Still here with me till the end. That's how I know you're one of us. The fixers, the founders, the ones who build in the chaos and still manage to laugh through it. Drop a comment, share your sparks, and connect with each other. This is where the net weaving begins. Like, share, and subscribe to keep the fire blowing. Until next time.